Hello, I am Jessie the Sleepy Koala, and I am here to talk about which books I plan to read in the month of November. To start us off, the books that I'm currently still trying to read. First up, Dreadnation by Justineireland. I picked this up from the library back in September and have only just started getting around to it now. It is about a girl who is in a post-apocalyptic world where zombies have taken over. The zombies turned up mid-Civil War, so there is a lot going on in terms of the treatment of African American people and Black people in general, and that plays into this story. Our main character, Jane, was born on a plantation to the lady of the house, but her father was a Black farmhand. She is taken at some point to go to this boarding school type situation, except she's going to learn how to fight zombies, because what they do is they round up all the Black children and they send them to a school so they can send them to die. That sounds like racism. I have not gotten very far in the story yet. I have no idea how much of it takes place while Jane is at school versus afterwards. I have enjoyed what I've read so far. A lot of it is pretty character-based, and I really enjoy Jane as a character, and I really enjoy her friend Kate as a character as well. So I'm interested to see where it goes, what happens with Jane and Kate. Do they become friends? Do they not? I kind of wish they would become lovers. I also don't know if it's that kind of book. The second book that I am reading at the moment, A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. This is an interesting book that is kind of slow, but I'm digging it at the same time. It is about a girl called Ophelia who has two magic powers. One, she can read the history of objects that she touches, and two, she can jump through mirrors like they are portals. She gets sent away in an arranged marriage to the Northern Clan to a man called Thorn, who is quite an asshole, really. He is rude and really insensitive and just ignores her, even though neither of them want to be in this marriage, and they are both very clear with each other that neither of them want to be there. But at least Ophelia doesn't treat him with disdain, which he does to her. She has to go off to his homeland and try and integrate herself into the courts in this place called the Cité Celeste. I am almost halfway through the book, and Ophelia has reached the Cité Celeste and is kind of starting to figure out what she needs to do there. But again, I'm always halfway through the book. So far, she's traveled from her home place to this place. It is a very slow book. We do learn a lot about Ophelia as a character. She is very interesting. I do like the story so far. I'm interested to see where it's going. I'm interested in the other characters that have come into play, and some of them are not the nicest people, so we will see where that goes. But I'm enjoying the book. It's good. It is taking me a while to read it, but I do want to have it done by the end of November. And I think I can do that with only half the book left. Onto the books that I have not yet read, but want to read this month. Deathless Divide by Justineireland. This is the sequel to Dreadnation, and I would quite like to be able to get to it. I'm hoping that I can get through Dreadnation and then immediately start this afterwards, because it sounds very interesting. After everything I said about hoping that Jane and Kate become friends in the first book, this book is about Jane and Kate. So I assume that they do become friends or something happens, because they're both in the next book. And I would like to see where that goes. There's not much in the synopsis about what happens in this book. Basically, generic Jane learns things about her past and has to figure things out. Kate now learning the power of friendship and trying to keep that around. I hope that I can get to it. I will see. I think I should be able to redo it with the library and take it into December, but I don't know. I'll see at the time when I get to it. But I did take this out much later than the initial September haul that I did, so it might have to wait until after some other books, because I'd really like to get through the rest of my September TBR before moving on to another book that is not part of it. Speaking of my September TBR and things I have not read, Ninth House by Leah Bardugo. I haven't read this yet. I would really like to read it. There was a lot of things that seem to be happening in this book, and I am interested in knowing what happens. There was a lot of stuff about going to university multiple times, maybe dying, and something to do with the occult. It does sound very interesting, and I would really like to read it before I have to take it back to the library, but I'm just going to see how it goes. I'm not going to push myself to read more than I want to read, because that's how I burn out and I don't want to read anything anymore, and I really don't want to be in that spot. So if I get to it, great. If not, I can always borrow it again and read it at a later date. Last book is actually a series of books. It is the Caraval series by stephaniegarber. I still know very little about this series. Initially, I looked up the synopsis so I could figure out if I wanted to read Dreadnation or Caraval first. And it does sound interesting. There's sisters and running away and this thing called the Caraval and a performance that isn't meant to be real but then is real, and it does sound very fun. But it is 3 books versus 2 books with Dreadnation, so I think there's more of a chance that I'll get through the 2 books for Dreadnation than I'll get through these. But even if I can read just the first one of these and then know whether I need to get the other ones out again in future, that would be very good. My goal is to at least read the first one, and if I have time, read the other ones. But like with Ninth House, if I don't get to them, I don't get to them, and I will just borrow them out again at a future date. I know they're at the library, and I know they're there, and I can always put a hold on them if I have a burning desire to read them at any particular point. Or I could just go pick them up again, like I did last time. They were just stacked on top of each other as a trilogy. So I just picked all 3 up, then went to the checkouts and checked them out. So if I need to, I will do that again. The last book I plan to read in November is the upcoming 3rd novel from Brandon Sanderson in the Skyward series named Cytonic. I have been so excited waiting for this novel. I love the Skyward series so much, and I'm really looking forward to this next book and seeing where the story goes. Currently, we have the first 2 books in the main series, and then we've got 2 novellas so far that go along tangential to the Cytonic storyline. I have read both of those novellas and loved both of those novellas, so I'm very much looking forward to what happens in Cytonic that happens to be parallel. How is this gonna go? What is happening? What is going to happen? I am also really hoping, because I did have some issues with the second book, there were choices that Brandon decided to make that were not in the direction that I wanted the story to go. And that is okay. It is okay if what I expected didn't happen. And even though I'm disappointed about it, I know there are a lot of people who loved Starsight for what it was, and that is also perfectly okay. But, because I did have some down moments with Starsight and wished I could like the book more than I did, I'm very excited for this one, because hopefully I don't have that. I'm really thinking that this is going to go well. Now that I know the direction that Brandon's going with this, I hope that I can follow it along and get that excitement back. We don't know much about this story so far, just that Spencer, the main character, and her buddy Embut go into this place called the Nowhere, and something. That's it. We just know that it's about the Nowhere, and that is because the original title for this book was Nowhere, which got changed because that is a terrible title for a book, even if it makes sense in world. And now it is called Cytonic, which also makes sense in world, and is also a lot easier to tell people which book you're reading, and they can understand it, and publishers can put that book out. We will see how Cytonic goes. I will definitely be doing a spoiler-free review for Cytonic, a spoiler review for Cytonic, and also a recap for Cytonic, which goes in the Claim the Stars series that I'm doing for all of the books at the moment. On that note, the ReDawn recap would have come out last week. If you have read the Skyward series and you want a refresher leading up to Cytonic but you don't want to reread everything, I have got the YouTube series for you because I am doing recaps of both the main series and the novellas, so you can have a little bite-sized chunk of what's going to happen to get you ready for the next book. That is all for me for today. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.